And in this next fight, we got an intriguing matchup in the middleweight division between Joseph Holmes and Jun Yong Park. Jun Yong Park, he's one of the more fun mid-carders to watch in the UFC. He had some really good back and forth fights so far. He's been able to carve out a pretty solid spot for himself on the roster. He's 4-2 overall in the company, and he's coming off a big victory over Eric Anders. His two other wins were good wins as well. He beat Marc-Andre Barriault, he beat Tafon Nchukwi. He also has a dominant victory over John Phillips, which is not as impressive, but his two losses came against Gregory Rodriguez and Anthony Hernandez. Both those guys he had badly hurt as well before getting the tables turned on him. I think Joseph Holmes is a step down in competition on paper in terms of just how good his other opponents have been, but I still think that Joseph Holmes is a very, very dangerous, difficult guy to beat, and I feel like Holmes has potential. I want to see if, and I think the UFC wants to see what he's worth here by giving him a tough opponent. But Jun Yong Park, he's someone that's beaten fighters right outside the top 15. So if Joseph Holmes, who only has 2 UFC fights, 10 total fights, can beat Park, that's going to be a huge statement. Holmes, he earned his first UFC victory in May. He finished Alan Amedovski in 1 minute and 4 seconds. Amedovski is one of the worst fighters in the UFC. It was an easy win, so it didn't prove a ton, but hopefully it gives Holmes some confidence and something to build off of. And in his debut, it was a bit of a disaster for him. He laid an egg. He lost to Jamie Pickett by decision in a fight he really should have won. You could chalk that up to being his UFC debut for now and maybe having some UFC jitters after he came back with a big performance in his second UFC fight. But I still think he has a lot to prove. If he can't blow his opponent out of the water like he did Amedovski, then we don't really know if he can hang with UFC competition for multiple rounds yet. Jamie Pickett, he's one of the lower level fighters on the roster. And if you can't beat Jamie Pickett, then I think there's not too many guys in the UFC you're going to be able to beat if you're competing at that same level. But Holmes has to prove that he was better than that. It's just a case of the UFC jitters on the night. And if he can beat Jun Yong Park, that's going to be a big step in doing that. And Holmes, he's really tall, he's long, he's lanky. He's going to have a big height and reach advantage in this one. He's 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. That's going to be a 7-inch advantage on his opponent. And he's a Muay Thai fighter. He has a nasty jab, real slick 1-2s, 2-3s, 3-2s, counter 2s. Very long, accurate, which gives him one-shot KO power. He only has 2 knockout wins, but I've seen him flatline an opponent with 1 punch. His last fight, he landed a beautiful knee up the middle that dropped Amedovski before submitting him. Defensively, Holmes struggles. He doesn't move his head too much. He can float his chin. Definitely can be hit, and I think fighters that pressure give him a little bit of issues. Fighters are going to have to walk through some heat against Joseph Holmes, though, to beat him. He has potential. He has real long arm speed, accuracy, and it gives him the chance to hurt anyone early. And also, he has good rear naked choke. So against tough fighters, if he hurts them and he can't TKO them, he can submit them. Holmes just needs to keep gaining cage time against opponents who are going to try to pose a threat to him because he's ran through a lot of opponents. And I think he also needs to improve his cardio. But Joseph Holmes, he has decent offensive grappling. He isn't the best wrestler, but he can use his length in the clinch to get takedowns. He's good at getting in the back from standing. Over half of his wins are rear naked chokes, including his 1 UFC victory. Holmes is okay defensive wrestling. I think he needs to work on it, though. He can be taken down. He can be held against the cage. He is fairly dangerous to shoot on because he has those long levers. He's going to be looking to counter with knees. He has good uppercuts. He's training with the Glory MMA now, who are really known for those knees up the middle, so he's probably only going to get more deadly with those. And in his last fight with Amedovski, he clearly landed one. Holmes against Jamie Pickett struggled with Pickett's upper body clinches, getting held against the cage. He was also taken down with a couple double legs. Cardio costed Joseph Holmes in that fight with Jamie Pickett. And Holmes is 0-2 in decision so far. He's not won a fight that went to the 3rd round. So there are some question marks surrounding him. For his opponent, Jun Yong Park, we got a really good boxer. Real nice jab, good combinations off the jab. He likes to stick at range and then full counter the return shots of his opponents. And when Park can get his opponents moving backwards and come forward, he has nice 1-2s or 1-1-2s. And on the inside, he throws some nice elbows. Defense is not good, though. He does not move his head. He's very hittable. Stands very tall, so he's light on his feet, but it also leaves him right there to be hit. In this fight, I think Holmes is going to try to, or I think Park should try to wrestle more than strike. On the feet, I think he's vulnerable against a very long, rangy, fast guy that throws dangerous straight shots. And Park has okay wrestling. His wrestling stats are definitely inflated because he was able to feast on the poor wrestling and grappling skills of John Phillips, but he does have a decent single leg. In this fight, I think Park is going to try to get Holmes to overextend so he can clinch and look to find a takedown against the cage or hit that single. And he'll try to catch kicks and get takedowns that way. So Holmes has set his kicks and knees up. And Park, when he can get on top, he's real heavy. He does have a good ground and pound game and good job attacking the neck to maintain position. He has a big advantage in terms of cardio and experience. And I think he should try to push a high pace and break Joe Holmes. He has real good conditioning. And I think early in the fight, Park is going to have to be careful. He's going to have to respect the dangerous factor that Joseph Holmes has. And Park doesn't have the greatest defense. He also likes to stay at range, which in this fight, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Holmes is fast. He snipes straight shots. If he can get his range early, it could be a quick night for Park. Park has to get the jab established. He has to pressure in this fight. He has to get inside, try to make it more of a grappling match. The longer Park can extend the fight, the better it's going to get for him, I believe. And, I feel like if he can get into the third round, he'll probably win the fight. But this should be a good fight. Even though Joseph Holmes lost to Jamie Pickett, I'm not going to get off the bandwagon just yet. I was high on him before he got to the UFC. I think he still has potential. On paper, this is a pretty good matchup for Holmes. He's getting a fighter who's going to be willing to sit at range with him, not the fastest or most explosive fighter, which Holmes can struggle with a bit. Holmes does have to worry about the wrestling threat, but Park isn't a D1 wrestler or anything. We just saw him get out-grappled by Eric Anderson in his last fight. And to beat Jun Yong Park is not going to be easy. Park is going to have to risk it to win this fight. I think he's going to have to be a little bit more active, a little bit more aggressive, and try to get in the pocket, land elbows, land counter hooks, and be more of a wrestler too. If he could make it a real high-paced, kinetic fight, there's a chance that he could start to take over and break Joseph Holmes. But, I did see Park, he tends to try to get it right back when he gets hurt, and he likes to brawl. And against Joseph Holmes, I think that could be a bad decision if he gets hurt and tries to brawl with a real clean puncher. We saw him against Gregory Rodriguez. He got hurt, decided to brawl with Rodriguez, and got put out cold. He early in that fight against Rodriguez also got taken down. He got his back taken. And even though I don't think Joseph Holmes is on the level of grappling that Gregory Rodriguez is, it is something to look at that Jun Yong Park gives his back, because that is Joseph Holmes' position. I think, I'm going to go with Joseph Holmes in this one. I'm not super confident, but, ultimately I think that the guy has a lot of potential, and I was high on him before he joined the UFC. He had a bad, lackluster performance in his UFC debut, and I think that's why his odds are where they're at now after even having a really good performance in his second UFC fight. People are still not sold on him yet, but I think this is a good buy low spot for Joseph Holmes, potentially, where you could get him at decent odds, plus 200, or good odds, obviously, and maybe, not get that coming forward after you see Holmes do really well against a guy like Jun Yong Park, who is rated highly. I think Holmes is either going to land a big power cross or knee and knockout Park, or drop it, submit him with the rear naked choke. So, we're going to go with Joseph Holmes. I'm going to say he wins via first round submission.